The views expressed on this program are those of the producers and individuals appearing on this program and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Sun Prairie Media Center staff, its video service providers, or the staff and elected officials of the City of Sun Prairie.
Hello there, and welcome to Real Reviews. My name is Jameson Rabbit, and this week is a big occasion. It is episode number 450 of this show. Hard to believe. And to celebrate such a fun occasion, I could think of only one other person to join me for this. You know him, you love him, you haven't seen him in a while. It's Mike Roth, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
It's so good to see you.
I love it when you dress like the whole December. You look like this, and I love it.
Oh,
Thank you very much for inviting me back on.
What? I mean, this is where it's at right here.
Honestly, I haven't been watching much movies since
This
is like the excuse. It's like all of a sudden I'm watching a bunch of movies I haven't seen. Otherwise, I'm really digging Andor and a lot of TV series that are going. Andor, I think, is one of the best things that Star Wars have come.
It's been a while since they nailed something like that.
Yeah, it's so fantastic. But that's not what we talk about. We talk about movies, and what do we got?
We got a bunch of movies this week. The King of Segways is back, and I'm going to get us started with what we have on the marquee this week. We have one movie that was playing in theaters. Let's get into it. It's a film called, spoiler alert, from director Michael Showalter. Stars Jim Parsons as a man named Michael. Michael is a workaholic, a television journalist for TV Guide. A bit of a dweeb, as some would call him, kind of uptight. And the meet cute in this film comes in a dance club where he and this much more confident, outgoing guy named Kit, who is played by Ben Aldridge, this is where they meet. They're very different. Kit doesn't even own a television, and that we see that first get-to-know-you dinner with the awkwardness of, I don't want to say something stupid.
Kit's not into cool things like Smurfs. I thought that was weird.
Yeah. We find out a lot about them, and we see that awkwardness, and we also learn early in the movie that the character of Michael has a lot of childhood trauma that he processes through daydreams, where he kind of daydreams that he lives in a sitcom.
Yeah.
And also processes it through Smurfs.
I think that kind of quirky stuff really brings out this movie.
Yeah.
So this movie is a lot like a lot of the death movies. The director, Michael Showalter, he did another one that we really love, The Big Sick.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of movies like this. It does exactly the proper job of pulling on the heartstrings and making you cry for a good hour at the end of the... But I really didn't see too much originality because we see a lot of these kind of movies.
Well, yeah, and you know, it is a tragic rom-com because Kit, about halfway through the movie, after we've watched them build this relationship and kind of fast-forwarded through the easy years, and now they're kind of having a rocky point in the relationship, Kit is diagnosed with cancer.
And the movie is called, spoiler alert, it's based off a book called Spoiler Alert, The Hero Dies. So this is nothing.
The movie opens with the end.
Exactly.
So we know, and the movie kind of bounces back and forth sometimes. The character Michael is telling the story of their relationship, and sometimes we bounce back to this. And so he gets this cancer diagnosis just as their relationship's hitting this rocky spot. And the final third of this movie is this a very emotional journey for everyone, not just them, but also for Kit's parents, because he hasn't come out of the closet to them yet. His parents, played by Sally Field and Bill Irwin, who I really loved in both. I love both of them.
They're
in this.
great.
And yeah, I mean, at times it felt like, you know, your typical rom-com Hallmark type movie, and that's fine. Like, I didn't feel overly manipulated. It pulled my heartstrings.
And I think they did a really good job at making this feel very real. It didn't feel like they just fell in love because the movie demands it. It felt like real people going through a real situation of relationship building, and then what do you go through when you have to live tragedy every day?
Yeah.
And honestly, the whole theater was crying the entire time. I'm sitting there trying to, you know, keep it frickin' together, and then at the end, I'm like,
don't be cool, man. Just let it go.
Yeah, just, oh my gosh, this hurt so bad.
Because of the time I went to see the movie, I had the theater to myself.
Yeah.
So I was just openly weeping at a couple of points. Yeah. And almost anyone you know has had cancer, unfortunately, touch their lives in a tragic way. And so I think a lot of people can find a lot in this story. I'm not a Jim Parsons fan even, right? I don't really care for him. I was never a big Sheldon guy on Big Bang Theory, whatever, but I thought he worked in here better than I expected.
Mm-hmm. He is someone who's definitely been typecast.
Yes.
And he tries to branch out and other things, but he always comes across as Sheldon. And this one definitely still acts like Sheldon, but I stopped thinking, this is Sheldon.
Right.
And that is very important when you want to emotionally invest yourself into a movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just the 4 characters. You know, I thought Ben Eldridge as Kit was really good. I really enjoyed him. Like I said, the parents, they're a lot of fun. They're great. Jim Parsons got his own in a movie that he's working with Sally Field. He got his big Sally Field moment, the give my husband a bed moment. Like, oh yeah, that's a big one right there. You see a lot. That's a huge moment in these movies. I feel like when I got done, I could pick this movie apart scene by scene if you wanted me to.
Yeah.
Like how hokey this is, how manipulated it is. But it didn't matter to me because I just was along for the ride, along for the story in this movie, and I kind of enjoyed just sitting there. Maybe it's because I had a theater to myself. I enjoyed being able to just be one with my emotions watching it.
So wish I could be there and just. Are you a bellower when you really want to?
I had one slip out. Like I'm trying, and then I had one that slipped past me, got past the goalie, and I actually stood up because I'm in the back row. I stood up to make sure like nobody's here, right? Okay,
I can Klingon wail. Just
let it go. Yeah. The tragic rom-coms. This is a decent one. Like if you want to watch an amazing one, like you said, The Big Sick is top level.
And Meet Earl and the Dying Girl.
Oh, yeah,
also
we both love that one.
fantastic.
You're right.
And if this was the only one I've ever seen, I would have been like, knocked it out of the park. This deserves the highest score. I gave it a great score.
Sure.
But
for what it is. And what would that score be, sir?
3.5. It is a very decent movie. I highly suggest going if you enjoy crying.
Merry Christmas. Go and give yourself a good cry. I agree. I gave it 3.5 stars as well. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I have a feeling with Avatar coming to theaters this week that this movie will be in and out of theaters, unfortunately.
I did. Okay. I'm going to tell you something. It's a little bit of a secret. I hated the first Avatar.
We'll be talking about that in the next episode, sir. I'll give you some thoughts.
I thought it was long and boring.
Still is. Nothing's changed.
Oh, no.
But yeah, so 3.5 stars out of both of us. Well worth checking out for sure. Let's move on to our streaming spotlight where we turn to Netflix for a movie. What do we have?
We have Guillermo Del Toro's Pinocchio. I learned how to say Guillermo very well
Nice job.
from What We Do in the Shadows.
Yeah,
TV
there you
show.
go.
Another show I've been watching a
Great
lot
show.
of. Guillermo Del Toro's Pinocchio. He essentially takes the original story that was written by Carlo Codelli over 100 years ago, and he put his own little spin. Instead of being in the late 1800s, it's now during wartime, World War II in Italy. Mussolini is the playboy that everybody wants to live up to at this time, and we get to see a little bit of this. This is a little bit more about dissidents being something that you use instead of more focused on being a boy is the highlight of your life. I find some of the divergence from the original stories to be interesting, but I think the highlight of this is a still frame animation movie. It's the longest one ever made, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Look at it.
There was some times where I thought it was a little distracting. I thought it could have been CGI, but this is just painstakingly made by wonderful artists. And even though Del Toro kind of handed off a lot of the artwork to other people, they know Del Toro's work and they emulated it perfectly. I think this Pinocchio is the best looking Pinocchio I've ever seen.
Oh, hands down.
He's ugly and weird, but
that's a Del Toro character.
It's so
all
enduring.
of his characters in all of his movies are original looking, kind of grotesque, kind of scary at parts. And I like what he did with this in, like, first off, Geppetto's not just the, happy-go-lucky.
Yeah.
He sees his son die because a bomb lands on his son. Yeah. He's drunken and angry and mourning, and he builds this kind of horrific creature with bent nails coming out of him, just kind of hammers something together. And
not whimsical at all.
No. And, I mean, there's some interesting song because you're not going to get, There Aren't No Strings on Me, because this isn't the Disney Pinocchio.
No.
Things I didn't expect to see in a Pinocchio movie. Armbands, fascist praising Mussolini himself. I didn't expect to be one of the leaders in the town to be dropping a Sig Heil on me in the middle of a Pinocchio movie.
I wasn't expecting so much emphasis on religion either.
Yeah.
They do bring up religion, and it's very important.
It's filled with mature tones. This Pinocchio. This is not the Disney Pinocchio. This isn't the Tom Hanks, Robert Zemeckis one they dropped a few months ago.
But it's also not family friendly. It is for the whole family, but it's a little harder edge than what Disney would have ever done.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was watching. I'm curious, like, how are they going to do the whale? This movie, it's a dogfish. I think they knocked it out of the park. I love that.
And there's little things throughout the whole movie. So Jiminy Cricket, we all know, is now Sebastian J. Cricket, played by Ian McGregor, who I thought was a great voice actor.
Yes, he was great.
They did repeatedly almost kill him so many times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
He should have died.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't mention any of the voice actors.
No,
So we have David Bradley as Geppetto. Gregory Mann plays Pinocchio and Carlo. Carlo is the son, which is the untold story that gets told very well in this Pinocchio. Finn Wolfhard, which we all know from Stranger Things, is Candlewick. He is not the kid who takes him to Pleasure Island, but more he is a son of a high-ranking Nazi that you get to see a little bit about what it's like to be a real boy to some fathers who aren't that great.
Right.
And we have a new character, Spaztura, played by Kate Blanchett, which really didn't have any lines, and I was just flabbergasted that they have like a high-paying actor doing
but I think a lot
something
of these people,
like this.
a lot of these actors will just want to work with Del Toro, want to be a part of his movies.
And I really expected Tilda Swinton. This seems perfectly upper. Instead of the blue fairy, she now has a new kind of sprite. She's a wood sprite, and she's a death
She's
sprite.
also the angel of death, at
Yeah,
some point,
and
which
these
you don't see in the other Pinocchio movies.
No, but they're absolutely beautiful, and they're done well.
I'm not a fan of the story of Pinocchio, like the Disney Pinocchio. It is one of my least favorite of the Disney movies. No matter what version of it, I'm always really annoyed with Pinocchio. Like, dude, I just want you to get a comeuppance. And I love this story.
I looked at all the other Pinocchios more of instead of a lesson story, more of an Indiana Jones, where a bunch of random things happen. You go on a huge adventure,
it
and
does
then it's
feel
all
like
done.
little scenes. Yeah.
Where this one pretty much stays on topic most of the time.
Well, and I think that's the strength of Del Toro, though, is he creates a universe and then fills it with interesting characters. And his visuals are incredible in all of his movies. And they serve the story as opposed to directors who just have interesting visuals and don't know what to do with them. And I think he's great at this. And what I found was thinking back on his movies, because I love Del Toro, and we have loved a bunch of his movies. Most of his films are built around a theme of finding humanity in something, in these horrific creatures, whether it's a fish man in Shape of Water, or Pan's Labyrinth, or wooden boys or monsters, of finding what makes, digging in what it is to be human. And he did it in this one, and I absolutely loved it. And I think the stop motion was wonderful. None of that uncanny valley that you find in some of the digital transfer, animation. I loved it. And I don't know if you watched it. There's also a little 30-minute making of documentary about how they made the stop motion.
It's always interesting.
That's so good.
So I was watching it with someone else, and I was like, I'm probably boring them. I'm really interested in this. And after like 20 minutes, I'm like, I'm sorry. Turn it off. Then later in the night, they're like, I was really enjoying it.
Really?
I'm like, you gotta tell me these things. I'd watch that, and then I'd show you another making of.
Yeah, this is good. Another thing, I just look at my notes. I wasn't expecting, because Pinocchio can't die, that makes him an elite soldier. This is not your Disney.
No.
I enjoyed it. All right, what did you end up giving Del Toro's Pinocchio?
I gave it also a 3.5. It was a good movie.
Good stuff. I gave it a 4.5. I really dug this.
Nice.
I love that stop motion. So it's over on Netflix. We both recommend it. Go check it out. Take some time. Watch a good movie.
It's getting now where hand-painted is becoming the rarity.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to when someone, I know there was the Michelangelo, no, it wasn't Michelangelo.
Van Gogh?
Van Gogh
That one,
a few years ago, but maybe they should start making more of those.
I agree.
They're becoming rarities.
I agree. All right, let's move on to the final streaming spotlight of the week. It's a film that I saw over on Apple TV. It's the newest film from director Daniel Fuqua. Stars Will Smith, that problematic Will Smith. It's a movie called Emancipation. It's a film based on the historic character who came to be known as Whipped Peter, a slave who is photographed showing his back covered in whipped marks in the Civil War era. And this photo helped open the eyes of some people about what was really happening on those plantations. The beginning of this film is really a brutal look at plantation life for these slaves. It's very grim, very tough to watch in parts. The wanton brutality is always hard to watch with movies centered around slavery. You can feel the grime, you can feel the desperation, this black and white that it's shot in. Peter, the character that Will Smith is playing, is a slave from Haiti who hears around the plantation that Lincoln has announced that slaves have been freed, but his owners have no intention of freeing their slaves. So when given the opportunity, he and a couple of others escape with intentions of heading to Baton Rouge and meeting up with Lincoln's army with the thought that they would be freedmen and the army would help them go back and free their families that they had left behind. So Peter lights off through the unknown wilderness with miles and miles of swamp and bayou in front of him. And along the way, he's being pursued by a hunter named Jim Fassel, who is played by Ben Foster. Jim Fassel, his men, their dogs, they are chasing these escaped slaves. And so the entire middle of the movie basically is a chase film where Peter is running and Jim Fassel is chasing. And he's got fear and desperation trying to stay just ahead of the men who want him back to torture and kill him. And so this dark drama that we build in the beginning becomes a bit of an action flick with Peter, you saw in the trailer, fighting an alligator, coming up with creative ways to outsmart these men and to treat his wounds that he picks up along the way. And it veers pretty far away from where the movie started. Then it makes a hard turn into a war film, which we're seeing, with big battlefield scenes that are, frankly, for me, the best part of the film, these big battlefield scenes at the end. This movie is tough in a lot of ways. First, it's tough rooting for Will Smith after the rough year that he's had.
It was just a slap. I don't listen to the gas.
There's a lot about him that I don't like. Oh. And it's hard to root for him. And it felt desperate. Like, I really want to be accepted again, guys. Mm-hmm. Nominate me. And everyone's, the talk a few weeks ago was Emancipation, probably going to get him a nomination. Will they nominate him, even though he's not allowed to come to the ceremony for 10 years? It wasn't even nominated for a Golden Globe, which means it's probably, those hopes have been dashed. He's got this, he's working with another weird accent. I'm never a big fan of when he works with weird accents. His Haitian accent, not the best. And this felt like it was supposed to be a big prestige picture, and it kind of fell flat. It's really uneven, like a lot of Fuqua films. Fuqua made his bones as directing Training Day and getting Oscar out of that. But then it's been Olympus Has Fallen, the Equalizer films, Shooter, a lot of basic action movies.
I did like the new Equalizer.
Right, they're good, but they're just action movies, not like big thought-provoking movies. And I think that he fell back into that after introducing something really thought-provoking and heavy. And then it kind of looked, the black and white looks great, but, just because it's grim and deals with a serious matter doesn't convey a sense of quality, doesn't make it an epic film. And I felt like this movie was 3 different parts. Like you talk about Pinocchio being different scenes, like it's the plantation part, that's really grim, that's dark. Then there's the chase scene for an hour and 20. And then there's the battlefield section, which is interesting too, but it's not a full movie to me.
Oh, one of the good things about a lot of those epic movies is they break it up with something lighthearted. Did this movie do that
Nothing
ever?
at all. Not once.
Okay.
Not once. Ben Foster, who I love, one of my favorite actors, playing the hated slave master.
Yeah.
Easy role. You be the slave master, you're going to be hated.
Yeah.
But he wasn't doing anything different than you've seen in any of the 12 Years a Slave or anything else where it's like, yeah, this guy's a horrible person.
Yeah.
And he didn't really branch out in any way to me, and I don't know. I felt like it uses the story of Whipped Peter and that photograph that's famous of that slave showing his whip marks, the shocking visuals in the beginning, to kind of set up a film that it doesn't follow through with at the end, and kind of becomes an okay chase flick through the bayou, watching a guy fight an alligator and stuff like that. But it's over on Apple TV. It's also in limited theatrical run right now, but I ended up giving Emancipation 3 out of 5 stars.
So it was okay.
It was okay, yeah. It was okay, and there's moments that I really enjoy it. It looks beautiful, but I mean, this was kind of set up to be a big prestige picture, and it's just an okay movie that if you have time to stream, go ahead and watch it. But I wouldn't go like out of my way for.
I'm so glad you got me on for all these feel-good movies.
Yeah, right. Yeah. what a tragedy. Hey, let's turn it all around, though, with what we have for our movie throwback this week. You selected a movie. What do you select and why?
I selected A Night at the Roxbury. It's a classic Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan movie. These characters are actually what got them their start and what sent them to Saturday Night Live in the first place. Unfortunately, this movie also broke up their friendship, and they stopped talking for years afterwards. The movie is about Will Ferrell, Chris Kattan. They play some brothers who just love to go clubbing.
Right.
Steve Patowski, Doug Patowski. They are the dumbest people you could ever meet, and they are just looking for their big break to talk to someone about a club that they want to make.
The Inside Out Club.
Yeah, they meet up with Chaz Palminteri.
Palminteri.
He plays Benny Zadir. I know your tricks, Eddie. And you also have a lot of cast characters such as
You got Molly Shannon in
Molly
here.
Shannon. You got Colin Quinn in here.
Yeah.
You got Richard Grieco, who is not from Saturday Night Live, but it was kind of cool because you never heard of Richard Grieco after 21
It had been a long time since Booker was on TV.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was cool. And one of the things I loved about this movie, when my, not married anymore, but my ex-wife, she watched this. And during the heart-wrenching scene at the end, which they copied off of another movie, she was pregnant and had all these emotions, and she cried a little bit. And I just loved how this silly movie just kind of did that. And it left such an imprint that I became a huge fan. And I watch this movie at least once every 2 years.
Wow.
And I like the music, and I just think it's funny and stupid and silly.
This movie, this was the first time I watched it, probably since it first came out on DVD, right? This movie is everything about it feels like a relic of the millennium, right?
Oh, yeah.
This movie is very late 90s, early 2000s. Like, wow, all of it. I got the DVD off the shelf, blew the dust off it. Like, I haven't seen you in a while, old friend. Put it in. This was back when Chris Kattan could get a phone call returned in Hollywood.
Yep.
I don't think that can happen anymore. Nobody's picking it up when Chris Kattan's on the phone. Will Ferrell looks. I was shocked because I haven't watched this movie in forever. How young Will Ferrell looked in this movie. He's just a 20-year-old kid.
But back then, he still looked really old.
Yes, but I'm looking back now, I'm like, wow, look at he's so fresh-faced. It's been a long time since I watched the movie. I did not care for this rewatch.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
No.
Hey, you didn't do the sprinkler afterwards?
Here's what it was. Chris Kattan annoys me to no end. And that has not changed. It's probably gotten worse for me because now I don't see him every day. Yeah. Like back then, he's everywhere. Like, oh, this guy. This felt to me like the classic story of taking an SNL 3-minute skit and trying to stretch it into an 82-minute movie, which is barely a movie by 82 minutes.
No, and I have to agree. Little Nicky and the Superstar and all that.
Those, it's
are
Pat
terrible.
The movie and all those. This director, I looked him up because I'm like, who is this? John Fortenberry. What has he done?
Yeah.
Look it up. He's a guy who's made his living directing basically single episodes of pretty much every television series you've ever watched in the last 30 years. I look at his IMDb.
Yeah.
It's thousands of them, but it's always 1 or 2 episodes, and then he's gone, right? The only other feature film that he ever made outside of Night at the Roxbury, do you know what it is?
No.
Jury Duty. Pauly Shore's Jury Duty.
Oh, that's terrible. I also kind of noticed that a lot of people didn't want to be credited in this movie.
Really?
If you look up Benny Zadir, you have to type in, Google search and find out who played him.
That's funny.
It's like, not credited,
not
on IMDb.
Oh, wow.
You have to go deep.
You really got to know what you're looking for.
Yep. And I was just like, why? There's writers, Jim Carrey, I guess, had his hand in this, but uncredited.
And I was actually just talking about this before we started the show. I saw that he did a punch up on the script, and then they wanted him to come on because he was in the original skit on Saturday Night Live, and they're like, no. So then there's one moment where Chaz Palminteri's character is talking to the brothers.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, there's Jim. Hey, Jim. Hey, you pet detective. Come on. And off screen, and he goes like, I'm not going to be on screen.
I think everybody knew this was complete pile.
Yeah.
And just like, can we not
hitching
be
my wagon to Chris Kattan? I'm not doing it.
Not doing it.
Will Ferrell's not talking to him anymore.
This guy right here.
This guy, you found him.
I love that movie. I really do.
That's good. That's good. The fact that I own the DVD still Kind of surprised me when I looked on the
I
shelf.
picked it up on Blu-ray, and all they did was take the DVD and put it on a Blu-ray disc.
Dirtbags.
I hate that.
That's a
It's
pet
so
peeve of
grainy,
mine.
and I'm like, should be a beautiful movie.
That
All
really
these colors.
Chaps me, yeah. So, Night at the Roxbury, one of Michael's favorites. Not so much one of mine. That's all right. Let's take a look ahead, sir. We have a bunch of movies coming up because we are barreling into the holiday season. So we are looking at the weekend of December 23rd. We have a few films. First we have, on the 21st, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, another in the line of the Shrek spin-off series about the swashbuckling kitty cat, who is at this point down to his last life, still voiced by Antonio Banderas.
How old is he?
I don't know, but man, I cannot handle any more of these Puss in Boots movies. What are we doing? And then, let's see, this over on Netflix, we have Glass Onion, Rian Johnson's sequel to the great Knives Out mystery, following Detective Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig, on another mystery filled with a huge cast of interesting folks. This movie had a 1-week run in theaters. It's going to be on Netflix coming December 23rd, so really looking forward to that. Also in theaters, we have Babylon, Damien Chazelle's new film about the rise and fall of multiple characters in the early days of Hollywood as they switched over to talkies. The movie looks great. Stars Brad Pitt, Margot Robbie, Olivia Wilde, Jean Smart. Is already getting a bunch of Oscar buzz. So that's going to be in theaters. And then lastly, a film called I Want to Dance with Somebody. This is the biopic of one Miss Whitney Houston, starring Naomi Ackie as Whitney. Yeah.
So there's Oscar buzz, so it won't play in the theaters.
Do not get me started. Last night I went to go see a movie that is Oscar buzz and can't find it anywhere.
No, I bet you won't until February.
Same with Brendan Fraser's The Whale, which is like huge.
They've been really
I
pumping
think
that
I got to fly to the West Coast if I want to see that thing. Infuriating. Just
Terrible
infuriating.
game. I hate that game.
I hate that game. But you know who I don't hate? Marcus Theaters, The Palace here in Sun Prairie. I take back everything I said. We love you. And thank you for sponsoring this program. We enjoy a Dream Lounger, and I especially enjoy when I have a theater myself so I can cry openly and not in front of women and children.
I would love to hear you wail. Just,
You should have been there last night, man. Boy,
I had to try to keep it together.
Niagara Falls. But thank you for sponsoring this program, The Palace. We do enjoy it. Next week's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be joined by Dan Presser. You know him. He's the host of Sun Prairie News. He's going to come on here to talk about Avatar: The Shape of Water. That's a 3-hour and 15-minute movie, Michael.
The last one was long, too.
It
felt long, and it was long.
The last one was so long ago that I watched it at Eastgate Cinemas.
Oh, yeah.
Some people might not even know what that is because that was a long time ago.
The bar seat. I love the bar seat.
I sat dead square in the middle. It's a 3D movie. It's a packed house, right? It's making a bajillion dollars. And I spent the last half hour having to use the restroom, but didn't want to get up and bother everyone because I'd have to do the excuse me through an entire row. So the last half hour of the movie, I'm just seeing red or yellow and just enraged. Make this movie end.
That's why I love the bar seat. You could just slip under the bar and then slip right back.
I tried rewatching Avatar the other night because, it's streaming.
Yeah.
Put it on.
Yeah.
Made about 2 hours in, tapped out. I thought that was a win. I made it 2 hours.
It's not as bad as Transformers.
Do you have
but
it in
just
3D?
feels, I might.
You're the only person I know that has a 3D.
I have a lot of 3D movies too.
Yeah, might have to
but
watch it.
I didn't like the movie, so it might not be there.
Therein lies the crux. All right, we also have, next week, I'll have Avatar: The Shape of Water. I'll have a film called Bardo, which is Alejandro Iñárritu's new film over on Netflix. A film called I Love My Dad, Patton Oswalt's new film. And then over on Disney Plus, a documentary about Abbey Road Studios called If These Walls Could Sing. Sounds very interesting. But you got to tune in for all of that next week for episode 451. Hey, thank you for coming back.
Thank you for inviting me.
This is like an old shoe.
It really fits in well. I like coming in here and doing this. This is good.
Yeah, it's good. We're going to get a letter writing campaign to make you come back more often.
I would like, try to get me to retire from my city job. That would free up a lot of my time.
Does it have to be retired? Can I just get you fired? Either way?
No, because I have to find another job. I need that pension.
Yeah. Well, you can live off the Real Reviews money. I mean, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, just give me 100 times more than what you used to give me. And I'm still not going to make it.
Oh, man. All right. Well, it was wonderful seeing you, sir. A very Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas to
and,
you.
And to you and your loved ones. All right, let's get out of here, though. It's enough sentimentality. Get me weeping again. For next week, I'm Jameson.
I'm Mike Roth.
Merry Christmas.